And we are live.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's the 26th of March, 2025. It's about 3 in the afternoon. This beautiful, colder than shit day in northwestern Ohio. Welcome to M&N Exhibition Poultry's Talking Chickens, episode 4. Yes, we have survived 4 weeks. Sponsored by Reserve Poultry Supplies. You need anything, call Caitlin, call them, get on the website. Got everything you need. Ship it out damn near immediately. Have a lot of good products, and we'll talk about a little bit more of that later. So last week we talked to Nate Reinish on waterfowl, and this week we have the one and only Emily Shoop. My third daughter, Matt's only daughter, but my third daughter. And we're going to talk today a lot about juniors, how, well, everything about juniors and showmanship and everything. So, Emily, why don't you take it away and let us give us all those degrees and stuff around your background? Your dad and I got degrees in hard knocks and making mistakes, but spend a little bit more money on you, and you got different degrees.
Mhm.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know me by my married name, I am Emily Lehman, or was Emily Lehman, I guess. Still in there, but pretty deep. But I'm Matt's daughter, and I've been raising chickens since I think I was, 3 years old.
Mhm.
Um, I have vivid memories of my first pair of white Wyandotte Bantams in our little tiny shed. And it grew to a definitely significant operation when we were in, or when I was in high school, junior high and high school. And so we've raised just about everything. And most of the everything that we've raised has been something that I said, hey, that'd be kind of cool. Uh, Runner ducks, call ducks, uh, black-tailed white Japanese, all of those things that I said, hey, let's get into that. That sounds like fun. Um, I was a 4-H member as a kid. We didn't have FFA in our program at school, so I chose 4-H and did a lot with our local 4-H program. Went on to the University of Arkansas and studied poultry science down there. Got 2 degrees in poultry science and did a lot of extension work when I was there, whether that was domestically or abroad. Got to do some extension work in Mozambique, which was a really awesome opportunity. Um, Worked for Tyson Foods for a short time and then decided, that wasn't for me. I missed the extension side of what I was doing with poultry and talking to folks about raising birds. So moved to Pennsylvania, and I've been here for about going on 9 years. Started off with Penn State Extension as a poultry educator for adults. During COVID, I became the small flock expert, much to my chagrin. I didn't realize that was what I was going to be doing, but it seemed to fit, the shoe fit there. So I did a lot of that work. Then in 2022, an opportunity presented itself that I could join the 4-H team. And so got back to my roots and have been with 4-H ever since. And now sit on several different types of things. I'm a district director for Pennsylvania and Delaware for the American Bantam Association. Used to sit on the scholarship committee for the APA, chair of the farm show committee, and that was one of the highlights of my time here has been to bring turkeys back to the farm show. So done a lot with poultry over the years, and I really got my start when it was in the 90s when we did youth poultry shows, and I think that was when they were at their height. I mean, that's you guys talked about the good old days plenty, but that was the good old days for me.
I
Was
remember
when
when
I
they.
was.
I remember the very first one. Neil Grassball said we got 4 classes now: large fowl, waterfowl, bantams, and kids.
And it's true. I mean, I feel like that was that group of people are now judges and breeders. And you talked to Nate last week. He was one of those people that he's not that much younger than me. Um, but that's why I kind of wanted to talk to you guys today about youth showmanship and youth poultry and what it was, because you kind of alluded to it in the last few episodes. It was um, back in my day, and I finally get to say that. That makes me feel cool. Uh, but it was you
Makes us
showed what
be
you got your
old.
right, and then when I say that I've been raising
My
poultry
hat's
for
falling
30
off.
years, it feels every bit of 30 years. So you showed what you got your hands on. Oh, here he is with his
I gotta
darn
get my
hat.
hat in there because it keeps falling off. Not woke. Thanks,
Okay,
Mike.
yeah.
You're welcome.
Anyway, you showed what you got your hands on. Like I showed what Dad had, and what you guys raised together. Or, I was then, as I got more serious about things, then I got to explore my interests. One of those was Seabrights early on. We realized that we didn't like Seabrights and that we couldn't raise any of them and made those mistakes. Um, then it was large fowl, white Plymouth Rocks. Remember Chester? Chester was my buddy, and then he attacked me, and he was no longer my friend. Um, then it moved on to Leghorns, and Leghorns was a staple for a while. I always liked Brahmas, but you showed what you could get your hands on and what breeders would provide to you. It wasn't, whatever goes the highest bidder. It was that person has something that you might be interested in. You need to go talk to them. And it didn't have anything to do with Dad having talked to that person. It was me. I remember at Lucasville hanging out in the sale area for a long time and trying to be pretty judicious about what birds I chose. But I feel like now kids are starting off on third base, and that's just not how I grew up. So it's not that it's wrong, it's just different. But starting off on third base, I don't think allows you to make some of those mistakes that we made. Even when you guys were talking about when you guys were coming up, you don't get to make those mistakes when you have your project pre-made.
They're starting at a better, higher level than most people. I think most kids do now, and they don't realize it.
Yeah, and I think that is because I work with 4-H now, and I see the kids that have and struggle so much with soft skills. And I remember when I was a kid, I used to hide behind Dad. I wouldn't talk, and because I was
goddamn, you got over that.
Yeah, no shit. It's because I got into 4-H and other things. I learned to talk to people, and interpersonal communication and resiliency and those types of things are soft skills we're not building into youth these days. And it shows. It shows in this next generation.
It really does. And just to add to that, when I do showmanship, which truthfully is very rarely anymore, but when they get all done, I talk to the kids all together, and I tell them that they just need confidence. It's skills that you'll learn. You need to go anywhere in life. It's having confidence in yourself, talking, telling them, don't and oh. I mean, I've told them if they don't know, make it up. Make me believe that they know. I don't know what they fed them. I have no clue. So they're going, that doesn't help. Just, do more 16% layer feed. Okay, that's good enough for me. So, I mean, but it is those skills, and a lot of those, the one or two that have them immediately. And then, fortunately for them, and unfortunately for everybody else, somebody else may know as much, but if you can't communicate that knowledge, then truthfully, do you have that knowledge? So,
yeah.
And by the way, folks, she's also a judge for the American Bantam Association.
Oh, sorry, that was one of those things I left out of my thing.
That's
because
right.
I'm a judge for the ABA, I don't have to.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I don't have to do as many showmanship competitions. But I remember my first one. I skipped my senior homecoming to go to Lucasville and judge showmanship, which was like pretty good excuse to skip senior homecoming. But and I remember stressing out about those questions and what I was going to ask those kids. And then 15, 20 years later now, I realized that the guys that were old when I was a kid, they didn't stress out about those questions. So why should I? And so I think I've developed my own gambit of questions that I go through every time. And like you said, Mike, you can convince me of anything because I don't know many judges other than maybe like Michael Schlumbaum who know exactly what date each breed was entered into the standard, either standard. You could tell me that bird got into the standard yesterday, and I'll believe you as long as you convince me of it. Because in my experience, knowing when that breed was accepted into the standard means nothing when you're sitting in a breeding pen deciding who's going to breed with who.
Nope, none.
And in the showroom, it doesn't matter either. It doesn't matter at all. And I think that's not what the intent and like our little agenda here. I'm skipping ahead, but
you do whatever you want. Even your dad's quiet, so hell, this is like a first.
I'm holding court finally, and it's only taken 30 years.
There you go, whole court.
But for showmanship, like for years, I've struggled with the different types across the country, and one of them being the California type of showmanship, where they hold up two fingers to tell me that that chicken's laying, and they don't communicate. They're just doing hand gestures and moving the bird around a little bit, which is
Mm-hmm.
great. You know how to handle that bird and check if it's in egg production. And Jim Salee did a wonderful job getting showmanship out to kids who may not have birds in their hands. But what was it, 2018? We went out to PPBA for
Hmm.
the
17.
national, and that was a great trip. But I judged showmanship out there, and I remember like feeling very out of place because I wasn't used to California style showmanship. I'd heard about it but never experienced it, and that lack of like verbal communication threw me for a loop the whole time I judged. And I think Yepa is kind of the opposite side of the coin, in that the few times that I've done Yepa style showmanship, it has been a very rehearsed speech. And that's just not how I came up. I came up in the Vi Hallback style, where it was to train future breeders. And I think any of the younger folks that you'd have on here, and any of the younger folks you talked about previously, Tom Mosina, Nate, um, Michael Schlumbohm, for example, those people that I went to college with and I came up with, it was meant to train future breeders and judges. Like, do you know that bird inside and out? Do you know the standard, and how can you comprehend it, what you're reading, and apply it to the flock that you have at home? And then, of course, learning to talk to older adults, because I remember there being some people that I was terrified of outside of the showroom, but could talk their ear off during showmanship. And Clell Lagler is still the same way. So I still feel, intimidated by him sometimes. But I remember being able to hold my own when he would ask me questions in showmanship. And Lou Cunningham and I went round and round when I was an older teenager, the same way. But yeah, I just feel like there's a disconnect somewhere, and I'm grateful for the opportunities the kids have now. I think the Yepa style showmanship is great because anybody can judge it. They have the sheet, they have the answers. However, that means that the kids have the sheet and have the answers. And so,
Kind of
um,
expound on that. I wrote that sheet originally in the
mhm,
90s. So the purpose of that sheet was just to give us a guideline to know how to score them. But some of the more important questions to me after we got it done was not, how many parts you can name off or this and that. It was, do you know the difference between a defect and a disqualification? Can you show me a defect and disqualification on your bird? What's the good points of your bird and what's the bad points of your bird? How do you take care of your bird on a daily basis? So you can tell real quick if they actually do the husbandry part of it. Do they hatch their chicks? How long does it take a chick to hatch? What are you looking for to improve? How's your brooders? Things like that. And pretty soon you can weed them out because there's a vast majority of them that don't do any of that. Mom
yeah,
and dad or grandma and grandpa do it, and they just grab the bird and run to the show. That's kind of what I'm seeing a lot of anymore. They're the ones that are the highlights, and I can name them off probably on both hands. That over the years, that actually, I mean, I can remember Zach Ogle telling me the history of the Rhode Island Red from inception to now, and who was the president of the club, and Jesus. And then I'd ask him those questions, but he could also answer those questions.
mhm,
So I think that's kind of where we kind of get off on just peeling down through a sheet and checking off boxes, but you have to give that interaction time where they actually display what they know. I always want them to be able to handle the bird. I'm amazed at how many of them struggle with, especially on a county fair level, even some state fairs, how they struggle on just manipulating the bird in and out of the cage. So, you got to get all that down. And I think that sheet, we've got it on the ABA site that I call it the Ohio State showmanship sheet because I judged that for lots of years. And there you have classes from 9 to 18 back then with about 25 kids in every class. It took all day, and I was hoarse by the end of the day asking them same questions 50,000 times. And you have to get to the point where I can remember Newt Long, Tyler Murray, some of the others down there that were really into it. That when you threw them ringer questions, then they'd try to bullshit you a little bit and give you some more information, and that made the difference between winners and losers back in those days.
yeah. I think it applies to other species too in livestock, and that's kind of where I go back to starting on third base, where um, I think of it as like putting a puzzle together. That if you buy a 500 piece puzzle and you dump that puzzle out and you put those pieces together and you make a plan of how you're going to put this together. You're going to start with the sky pieces or something like that. You get that puzzle down, you feel that sense of accomplishment, you frame it, you take it to the fair to exhibit it, and you're up against somebody who bought a framed puzzle to exhibit at the fair. And I feel like that's across all species, that there's somebody in those shoes either side of the fence. Um, and there's a lot of discussion, at least on my end, as a 4-H educator, about, is that fair? Is it fair for a kid to start off on third base? And I think it all works itself out in the end because the kid who started off on third base, does that kid have the things that we're supposed to be teaching, whether in the 4-H program or just a youth development program, doesn't matter what program, but are we teaching them about empathy and soft skills and responsibility and caring for animals and animal husbandry?
That
Um,
expounds on what we just said because um, anybody can go buy a bird, stick it in the show, and do whatever, and they can even do that with showmanship. But when you start asking them husbandry questions and breeding questions, that pretty much weeds them out real quick. So
mhm,
I still think that needs to be a big portion of what you're doing in showmanship, um, over and above that's kind of like the framework that we give them, but then those things are like the embellishments and the other things that make it a true project, I guess, especially on the 4-H level. Because if you're just buying a bird and sticking it in there and hoping to win, then and I can usually tell that if I ask them if they're raising any chicks or if they're going to raise any chicks. And so many of them get the birds, and 2 weeks after the fair's over, they're getting rid of them. And then 2 weeks before the fair, they're emailing me and Mike, and or their parents are wanting more birds. So over the years, I've helped a million kids, and a couple things that I've found in those years of doing it is free birds never get taken care of quite as well as ones they got to pay for.
yep,
Um, so they have to have some vestige interest in the bird uh, to do well. I think sometimes we make it too easy for them. So um, those are just my ideas on how we can keep going with it. That we need to promote those ones that are going to continue on. The bad thing about 4-H anymore is we don't have market hogs, market lambs, market steers anymore. We got show steers, show
yep,
pigs, show lambs. Well, we've always had show chickens, and even at 4-H on the market chicken level, I've had some very good kids that know their stuff on market birds and market turkeys, and that's what they do, and they studied it and they raise their own, and you can tell that real quick on who's actually going out there every day and feeding and watering and cleaning out the bedding, or if the first time they seen the bird is when and you guys found that out last year at our local fair here, when you get there and you find out that there's a club with 50 kids and they just pass birds out right before the fair. So that kind of brings them to the top, I think, of the ones you want to work with, and the ones that you just kind of, okay, we'll go right on by.
yeah. I think so. When I first moved to Pennsylvania, that was the first thing that I got involved in back was 4-H. And I remember taking pictures. So I was a livestock photographer for a fair for several years, and um, picking up a pen of broilers from one of our FFA kids, Kylie Painter, who every year she won that show. Every year she was in FFA.
Excuse me.
And because she put the work in. So there was no secret. There was no pay lean, which frustrates the hell out of me. Um, there was no magical feed. There was no magical sprinkling of anything on. There was no feed ingredient that was making those birds fantastic. The only thing that she did that was different from what all the other FFA kids did was she changed out bedding every single day. So she got those birds up, she moved them around, she changed out bedding, and got them back to where they were sitting. But she was moving them multiple times a day, and that was made all the difference. Was getting them up and building muscle. And of course, then everybody thinks she cheated. She can't win that much and not cheat. And I think that's the other problem that we have in 4-H, is that mentor of mine that was a district director for Penn State Extension for a long time, said that 4-H is a game for adults that you need a kid to play.
Yeah.
And I say that sitting in my 4-H office as a 4-H educator, because I find it to be very true in certain circumstances. I think there's two camps of volunteers in 4-H, and one is the people who want to help, and the other one is the people that want to win. and those two roads rarely converge. So I think the winning, if I could burn every ribbon we ever had, it'd be great. That aspect of competition is not what the project's about. It's not what 4-H is about. It's about the skills that you're learning and the people that you're going to become after you're out of the program. So that's my soapbox on that issue.
Hey, it's the same way when we judge not even showmanship, but just junior birds at a big
Shows.
show, whether it's Columbus, well, any show. But I mean, it's the best birds that mom and dad or grandma or grandpa can buy, and very rarely. Now, this is not 100%. You'll probably get some people pissy, but that would be nothing new. Uh, Matt and I made a comment last year. We were sitting in Dayton in the Greenville show on Friday afternoon. We had our birds in. We were sitting there, and I was amazed at the number of 60 and 70-year-old junior exhibitors that there were putting in the kids' birds, cleaning them up, getting them ready. I suppose the kids showed up sometime on Saturday, but and truthfully, it really pisses me off because if those birds mean that much, why don't you buy them and you show them against the big boys and you raise them? And if Junior wants to do it too, that's great. But I don't know. It's always
I
been a sticking point with me. I've never understood it. I don't know. I don't know what your life is. If that's the highlight of your day or week or year, you're sorely missing something else that you probably should be doing with your life to find enjoyment and fulfillment. Now, that's
Yeah,
not fulfilling to help your grandkids or your kids win, but for them to win, they have to do the work that
Yep.
got them there to win. Then they can share in that feeling, and that's the important part. And that's why how many kids, they got these birds as soon as they get out, they're 18 or 17. The guys discover girls in cars, and the girls, I don't know what they discovered because I'm not one, but they leave. So all that it's all gone, and yeah, they may come back, but I'd say probably 80-90%. Nah, that was a thing.
mm.
I
Well, I
kind of
think
do
about
the
like Benny when Benny did so well.
Yeah,
He probably had more success than I ever had showing for the same amount of time. But the year he had the partridge coaching at
yeah,
Columbus and the Aylesbury, you know, like you said, that collective
yep,
sharing and in the joy. Because I remember going out to dinner that night and we were all so proud of Benny because we knew that Benny
yeah.
did the work.
Right. See,
Not that he
that's
didn't have
that's
help, but Benny did the
no,
work.
he had help, but that's the thing. See, so most of the times he showed what we raised,
Hmm.
but before the open birds were picked, because he'd help with the hatching and took care of the chicks. He took care of everything. He'd do the sorting. I mean, he could call if he had to. But when we went to enter, Ben went out and picked out what he wanted to show. Before I picked out what we're going to show, he got his choice because he did the work. So,
Same thing
but
happened with
he,
Dad and I. Yeah, there was a
yep.
lot of.
So you bought into both ways, right? We were very, very happy for Ben. But whenever we win, Ben was really happy because he was a part of all those things, of
Mhm.
us winning and of him winning. And I
even
think that's what you got to
even
build.
helping Schaefer and others,
Oh yeah,
helping
Oh
all
yeah.
them, he would, be just as happy for them if they won. And his best story, I think, we'll ever have is the time he showed that damn guinea at Lucasville and won reserve champion of the show. He had one guinea, and he'd been babying that
well,
thing along.
but the thing was, so the backstory on that was it was Columbus the year before, and he kept saying, "I want guineas." Well, folks, I hate guineas. I still have a guinea because my wife won't let me not have the guinea. The guinea could disappear, but the damn thing keeps living. Anyway, that's another story. But Ben was like guineas. So Ben says, I need, I don't know what it was, 30 bucks, 40 bucks. Remember, he was selling all those
Yep.
chicken for us. He was our chicken hawker. And so I give him to him, and he went and bought and picked out this great big pen of guineas. And he's in there diving around, and he picked out, I don't know, 4 guineas, 5 guineas. That damn kid picked out some guineas, man. And that male, he was never beat. Like you said, that was the APA semi-annual, and he was reserve champion of the show on a guinea
In the open show.
in the open show, not the junior show. No, he showed that bitch open. No, that was a lot of fun. But so we could take as much pride in him winning as he took in us winning. I think that's the thing on the juniors. It's great. The parents should be involved. The grandparents need to be involved. But you know what? The kids got to be involved
Mhm. Yeah.
on both sides of the deal. And I think that's what builds a strong base
Yeah, I think I honk
for them.
off a bunch of them because usually, and God knows I've judged a million junior shows and some very big ones because I've done the Columbus Junior Show probably the last 8 or 9 years. But when I get the parents coming up to me afterwards asking all the questions, I tell them I don't want to talk to you. This is a junior show. I want to talk to the kid. So the kid has to ask the questions. Well, that kind of ruffles a few feathers, but that's the way
Mhm.
it is. I don't want to talk to them because it's not an adult show. We'll do that over in the open class, but it's a junior show, so I want to talk to the kid. And you can tell him what questions to ask, but they should have some idea on their own of what they need to know
Yep.
about why we did whatever. And so I've honked off a few over the years doing that, but that's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah, I think the my best honked off a parent story was Ohio State Fair in 2014. Um, our family friends had just had a baby very suddenly, and we're at Ohio State Medical Center during the state fair. And I walked over to my mom, who was at that point my chauffeur for the weekend while I was judging, and uh, she happened to be sitting by the family of the kid that won. And of course, because I had my mom sitting there watching me judge a million chickens and a million showmanship kids, there was a complaint that I picked that kid because I knew him. At that point, I was living in Arkansas. I didn't know a damn one of those kids. The only people I knew that were there were Lou on the other side doing showmanship for the Fancy Birds, and Betty Wingeter, who was in charge. So I didn't know anybody down there. But those kind of accusations always crack me up. Oh well, the judges suck. Judges suck.
Yeah.
Oh, the judge had a bad attitude when she was judging, and I'm like, well, you get down here and you judge all these birds that have no tail feathers and tell me if you're going to have a good attitude about it.
Hmm.
And that's the thing. It always cracks me up when there's complaints about the judges or complaints about rules, um, because that's across species too. It's never a kid, or it's very rarely a kid that complains about the rules. It's a parent or a volunteer, which that always cracks me up too.
Yeah. It's because they're living their life through their children.
Yeah, that 40-year-old 4-H'er mentality. But
Yeah.
I had just a list of some of the questions that I go through when I do showmanship. I don't do a lot of showmanship anymore. Um, I've fallen in and out of love with it over the past 30 years because when I was a kid, it was awesome. As I got to be an older teenager, I was frustrated with the kids that were beating me because I felt like I knew my stuff and they were giving that rehearsed speech that mommy and daddy told them how to do. That always frustrated the hell out of me, so I fell out of love with it again. Then I got the opportunity, and I'm really thankful to David Atkins and a lot of those other folks who ran shows at the time that asked me to judge. Done a lot at Columbus, pretty much every county fair in the state of Pennsylvania. I think I've done too. So um, I've honed my questions because I got tired of that rehearsed speech. And
Yep.
the first one I always ask is, what kind of bird do you have? And that will weed out more people than any other question. I want to know that you have a single comb white Plymouth Rock pullet. Bantam. You can throw Bantam in there somewhere. But I need to know all of those things so that I know the variety, the breed, the age and sex, and the class. And if sometimes I got to tease them out of the younger kids, and of course the Pee Wee Showmanship, you never do maybe fully get that answer. But and then what do each of those things mean? And I tend to go really quick when I'm judging showmanship because I have 49-year-olds I got to get through. But if you can answer those questions quickly, that weeds out the top 25% of that class. One that I've come to like asking this question, especially at a larger show, not so much at fairs, but at a larger show, is how did you come to own this bird? Or how did you come by this bird? Because I get some really interesting answers, and that sparks a really cool conversation. One that I can think of is Tom Purvis out of Michigan had Brahmas at one point, and he got his start in Brahmas from Bill Bowman right before Bill passed away. When I had Brahmas, that's where I would go to, and I always did respect Bill for the quality of birds that he had, and that sparked a neat conversation, and I'll always remember Tom for that. Tom Mosina,
he still has nice Brahmas too.
Right. And I always remember Tom Mosina because Tom Mosina gave me a brassy back Old English and brassy back American game lesson one time during showmanship at Columbus. And he gave me that dissertation. And that's a dissertation that I'll take because it was something I needed to know. I didn't know enough about brassy back. And to have a kid I think that spoke to maybe the relationship that Tom and I have. I like to give Tom opportunities. He came and judged our turkeys at Farm Show this year because I knew he could handle it.
He knows the turkeys. He's an excellent turkey person. Excellent.
Him and Jenna both did a wonderful job.
Yep. Jenna's real good too.
Back to do showmanship because she's another one of those ones that she knew showmanship and she could succeed. But how do you come to own this bird? I think that shows me that, well, if grandma bought it for you, okay, that's good too. But can you expound on that? Like grandma bought it for you because you like that type of bird. Or grandma bought it for you because she wants you to do showmanship. And there's that. We've already, I think, beat that one. I don't care about how many parts you can name. It's not a parts naming contest. Nope. That's for Skillathon. I want to know the parts of the wing and the parts of the head. That's important to me. And I always like to move in a circle. So cyclical type thing. You start with the eye and move around the head. The wing is a pretty cut and dry thing. If you don't know those parts, I don't know how you can interpret the standard properly, especially when it comes to wing color. If you don't know where the primaries, secondaries, and wing coverts are, it's going to be a problem for you.
But they know where the axle feather is because that's one that everybody gets taught.
And they will never say axial feather. They will come up with 9,000 other different pronunciations for that word.
The axle feather.
Yeah, well,
that one in the middle.
Closer to that other.
Yeah,
one in the middle.
That little thing. Don't look down at the other things. That's that thing.
Yeah. The other one is what class your bird belongs in, and I struggle with this at fairs. And for every fair that I have a touch point with, I try to get them to match APA and ABA classes versus saying large chicken, small chicken, or duck as a class. It's important to know where your class falls. I think that's basic interpretation and basic reading of the standard. I also asked, especially with the older kids, because I've done a lot more older kids, I think, than I've done the peewees. Varieties in your breed. If you don't know that, that's a problem too. Especially those breeds that only have one variety. If you tell me you have a white Buckeye, I'm going to be very confused. And then other breeds within your class. David Atkins was always hell on me doing this, was switching birds on us. So he'd have a class of 12 senior showmen and he'd say, all right, you move down the line. And being able to identify that bird, and I see it more and more that's just not, kids are so focused on the bird they have in their hand, they can't even figure out what bird's next to them. And I remember Michaela Cosart one year, I helped her with showmanship for our local county fair, and she went around and tried to figure out what the other kids were showing months in advance so that she could study. She had a Silky in her hand, but she was studying Rhode Island Reds and Old English Bantams and different things that the other kids had so that she knew she could compete. And I don't think that's vindictive in any way. I think she just wanted to size up her competition, and she did well. She ended up winning And now she knows more about Rhode Island red wing color than probably anybody else. So, uh, and then the last one is, or the second to last one is always, what do you like and dislike about this bird? And that's exactly what Dad was talking about. Can you show me a
Right.
defect or disqualification? What do you like about it? And then usually my follow up question is, if they have something they don't like about it, is what are you going to do about it?
Right.
If this bird is, if this one's too small, but you have one at home that's a little too big, what are you going to do about it? And then my last question, which is always my tiebreaker, is why do you show poultry?
Yep.
Are you here because grandma made you? Or are you here because you enjoy this and it's fun? And the ones that say it's fun, they get a little extra star there. Because it is,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's nothing but fun.
No, and I think especially that's why I have trouble with county fairs doing showmanship and at a show doing showmanship. At a show, the majority of them want to be there doing it. At the county fairs, they do it because they have
Mm-hmm.
to show their broilers or to show their what they have, and they show their broilers because they just want the money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now there's nothing wrong with money. I'm all for money.
That's always the wrong answer.
Yep, exactly though. But I
But if
mean,
they're
they
honest
don't
about it,
care. You know, and if a kid I've had this at the county fair, knew a lot. Was very cordial, and I asked that, why are you doing this? And he said, would you like the truth? I said, always. He said, because I can't show my my broilers if I don't do showmanship here, and I really don't care about showmanship, but I care about my broilers.
mm-hmm.
I said, well, that's fine. I mean, if I had the chance, I would never do showmanship. But that's me. It's all the bird, not about everything else. So, and I always didn't like doing it because it feels like I'm judging the kids. I, I don't like judging the kids as well as I like judging their birds.
Yeah.
Because I don't make a bird cry, and I have made kids
Well,
cry.
Mark Lang and I were always of the school that we like to hear these kids whine and complain a little bit. But if you didn't make one cry, you didn't succeed in a weekend. And I hate doing that too anymore. I don't like it.
No, me
I
neither.
don't want to make a kid feel bad, but at the end of the
Mhm.
day, I'll be okay to make a kid feel bad if they learn something from it.
Yeah,
Um,
and if they take it and they apply that knowledge and they understand that they were unprepared.
mhm,
You know, it's not you're berating them for something. It's just they were not prepared.
mhm.
Maybe next time you should like open that book, or how about have them buy you that book if you're going to do showmanship and learn about that. Of course, I could say that about a lot of people that show birds and open class too. They don't really know what that standard
Yeah,
is. Either one of them.
reading comprehension and application are different things, but um,
Comprehension. Comprehension.
yeah.
It's no
So,
teaching Chong. Oh, teaching Chong line. Comprehension. Hey.
uh, like I said before, I don't care when your breed was admitted to the standard.
No.
That matters not to me when it doesn't matter to me when I'm judging your birds. It doesn't affect your placing if I'm looking at a class of 5 chickens, um, and it definitely doesn't affect your breeding decisions. I care more about the defects, disqualifications, the conversation that you and I can have about your birds. That tells me more than any knowledge contest ever will. And because our showmanship and rabbit showmanship are pretty similar, it's the knowledge contest over the moving of a 1,500-pound steer around a ring. Um,
Right.
I always appreciate judges that do ask a question. And I remember our state program leader, Josh Rice, his brother came to judge a beef show for us one time. And he asked each age division for those beef kids a different question. And it was always a tricky question. It was like, how many eggs do roosters lay in a year? And he would ask it so quickly, the kids didn't have quite enough time to think. Like, how many steers are born in the U.S. per year,
None.
per month? Yeah. And a kid that has their wherewithal would answer it correctly. he got a lot of interesting answers. And then he didn't necessarily point them out, but he would turn around and tell it on the microphone. And I appreciated that because those kids typically never got asked a question before. It was move your cow around the ring, smile pretty, and scratch its belly.
Mm-hmm.
It was, or whoever has the nicest looking steer. It wasn't ever about the kid, and I always appreciated that about him judging beef. So yeah, then I also don't need a dissertation about who founded your breed. Like I do appreciate Zach Ogle used to do that. I think John Patterson at one point did too, but that doesn't affect your breeding decisions. That's not going to affect what you do in the showroom someday. And then that rehearsed speech and pantomimed parts. It's not a memorization contest. If you want to be serious about this, which I think kids that are doing showmanship should be very serious about this hobby, then put the work in. And they have more access to information than I ever had, than you guys ever had. Now they don't need the book. They can Google it. It's nice to have the book though. And I think it's very important that you do.
Yeah, it is, because copyright infringement, you know how that
Right.
goes.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that was kind of the crux of youth showmanship today. And but I do feel that it should be about the youth and building soft skills. At the end of the day, we should be helping kids do better and have better. And that doesn't always mean starting your kids off on third base.
Yep. Preaching to the choir with that one. I agree.
Well, I know that you guys know this because all of everything I learned from you two. I don't know if I should tell people that, but
Yeah, that took 10 minutes, maybe, Matt. I don't know. A lot of those things, Emily. Remember, the rules still apply. You don't talk about a lot of those things that you learned. Okay,
I
just
can't say
commit
I'm
it
not
to
allowed
life.
to say chicken show words when I'm not at a chicken.
No, no, no.
I think one of the big issues has always been transitioning them from the hatchery birds or the birds they got at the tractor store over to the actual show bird, and trying to explain to them the difference and getting the parents to understand that they're not the same, that you don't go to the dog pound and get a dog and take it to Madison Square Gardens. It's similar with chickens. You got to get them from a reliable source that's been bred for exhibition, if that's what you want to do. Or even with broilers, there's certain hatcheries and certain lines of broilers that do better, turkeys, whatever, that do better than some of the other ones. So you have to know where to get them to begin with. And I think that's the biggest hurdle to most of them, is getting started and then not doing the Noah's Ark crap and getting two of everything. You need to kind of concentrate on one thing and do it well for a while before you kind of branch out. So I guess
I
that's all
agree.
I got to add to it.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that I've seen it a lot, and I see the frustration from parents that have been misled by leaders. So I think it's having informed mentors and having informed leaders in your program, whether that's 4-H or even a local poultry club. It's important to have people that really know what they're talking about and don't just think they know what they're talking about. I judged a fair probably 4 or 5 years ago, that pre-COVID, but they had gotten everybody buff Orpingtons, and they were all about 6 months old, so they were half grown. They weren't in feather, and some of them still had chick down on their heads, like they weren't there. So about 80% of the kids had these half-grown buff Orpingtons, and two kids, a brother and sister, had some really nice Pekin ducks, and they were grand in reserve of the show. And I could have flipped a coin between either one of them on defects, disqualifications, pointing that out, or anything. Um, and a lot of parents were mad. Well, we got these birds from our leader. Well, they're not in feather. One, they have no type, they have no color because they're not in feather, and they're all over the place as far as buff, and they're horrible condition. These two white ducks, however, are white Pekin ducks. What would you do? And that's kind of putting it back. And of course, it was never the kids that had that question; it was the parents. And I haven't been asked back in the last how many years to judge that fair, and that's probably why. But I picked the wrong kid. That's okay. I'll go get my $200 somewhere else. But yeah, I think fairs are always the ones I struggle the most with, and maybe now more so than ever because I've been judging a few larger shows. and I get to be kind of picky on the shows I judge just because um, Molly's little and it's hard to travel. But yeah, I struggle with fairs a lot because again, you don't have the mentorship or you don't have the people with the knowledge, and good help's hard to come by.
Yeah, I think it's frustrating is what it is. It's not that they don't know, uh, but it's and other things, but it's very frustrating because it would be it the answers just seem so easy. You would ask someone that knows instead of having a pissing contest on who's going to run the junior show, who's going to run. Who cares?
One of the
So the
well,
the the adults kind of screw a lot of things up. Instead of just getting the information they need, ask someone and hear something, take their advice, maybe, instead of telling them they're wrong.
one of the things that I run into, I don't do near as many county fairs as I used to. Lord knows we have 88 counties in Ohio, and I've done most of them in better part of Indiana, Michigan, whatever. But what I want to suggest to them now, when I find a really good one, is they need to get their butt to the Ohio State Fair. My little neighbor kid that's been my protege for several years, I've been taking him down there. And since they went to that redistribution of the pool money from the auction birds, even for the things that a lot of them are good at, the skillathon, showmanship, class champions, for both meat and exhibition birds, they pay very well. I think Camden has come out of there with a lot of money. And it comes, I mean, Lindsay, Ely's daughter, Madison, both too. They do very well down there because they do good at the shows and they excel at the skillathon and the showmanship and all that stuff. So these kids that are really good and have a passion for it, you need to take the time to go to the state fair, because the money's there. They do it. Betty and the crew
Yep.
down there does everything to encourage you to do whatever you need to do. And I had several feed customers this year that did really well down there. Um, and they come out of there with a little bit of money, so it kind of rewards them for their project, whether it's on the show side or the meat side. If I find ones in the county fairs that are exceptional, I always recommend they go down there, because Mike and I's been showing it in the open show for the past few years, and we never could before because we never could get that much time off of work. But we enjoy it. There's as good a birds there as there is at any show. So I always recommend to everybody, even the open class people, and a lot of the kids, I have them. You can show in the open class too as well if you want to go down there and do it. And
Yeah, you could do it both. I mean, they could
yep,
show open class and then the Jew. And the great thing about the high state fairs, those birds are excellent, are taken care of excellently.
yeah, well, their
Uh,
staff is second to none for that, and
that
you can
they
drop
do
them off and leave them.
great. Yeah, and you don't have to worry about. They're fed, they're watered. Uh, Hell, they stay clean. I'm still haven't figured how that works yet, but I mean, they're clean. White coach and bantams, white chanticleers. We drop them off at it. How many days? 3 days till they're judged. 4 days till they're
Yep,
judged. They're still clean.
yep,
I mean,
they're in
they do an excellent job, and there's nothing to worry about. I mean, just go down and do it, and you don't have to
all the
babysit. You don't have to do anything.
I won't say all, but most of the state fairs that I've done, and I've done a lot of those too. But Indiana, Illinois, Michigan doesn't have one anymore, really, like they used to. But all those do a good job with
Yep.
promoting the kids and getting premiums up for them, and so you see a lot of good kids come to the top at those major state fairs. So
Yep.
Yeah, I
I
think
Yeah.
encourage
And they
them to
take it.
go if you got time. Emily could never go because it butted up against our county fair, and again, we
mhm,
could never get the time off of work to get down there. But
yeah, I think that along that vein, there's we talked about parents, and for as much as I need parents to produce more 4-Hers so that I stay in a job. Uh, but I see a lot of parents and I see a lot of people who poo poo the 4-H program or poo poo the FFA program. And I don't see a point in that other than I know there are some serious issues across the country because there's 67 counties in Pennsylvania and we all do things 67 different ways. But It's extremely important that we have these programs for kids because it might be the only thing that they have. And working more
Yeah.
with kids now, I mean, maybe I didn't see it when I was a youth, but um, I see it now that home might not be a safe place. So by God, 4-H is going to be. And that's been my mentality for the past 3 years is that, you're going to come here and you're going to have a good time and it's going to be escape maybe from what you're dealing with at home. And I think that's important. But um, I always encourage my parents to become volunteers because at some point we make a connection and we find out that, hey, this person's really into cake decorating or they're a master crocheter and they can help a kid that might be their spark too. And I think state fairs are always struggling to find people. We didn't have anybody that was really skilled for a long time after Tom Topper left. During COVID, we had some issues. We didn't have a state fair, and our state fair is in January, so it's a great time for everybody. All the birds are super in feather and in wonderful condition in January. And it's right after the holidays, so that's a hard time to get to people there too. But I jumped feet first back into farm show because there was a need and the kids desperately wanted to have something to do at the farm show instead of just showing livestock. They wanted their poultry back. So if you have a state fair or a local association or a local club, volunteer. They need your help. I can almost guarantee they will not turn good help away. Now, be good help too. That's the other.
But it's
Be good
always a
help.
caveat to
Yeah,
things.
be good
It's
help.
always a
But they will
catch.
not turn good help away. So, yeah, that's my other plug for volunteerism. Volunteerism is at an all-time low in the United States, and there's more kids than there ever has been. So,
Yeah. Without guidance
mhm,
of
yeah,
any kind.
and I could sit here and rattle off all the people that made a difference in my life just through 4-H and show and poultry. But
Yeah.
had they not taken an interest in me, whether that was because I was Matt's daughter or because I was adorable, either way, um,
And
Probably
humble.
was
the daughter.
was
Probably
Humble.
keyword.
maybe the yeah, humble. Yeah, there's no conceit in your family, honey. You got it all.
But I hope now being a parent, I think that's the other thing. I'll get real high and mighty about that. I hope there's somebody that takes an interest in Molly the same way that people took an interest in me.
Yeah, it helps.
Yeah,
It,
she's real
it
cute
really
too,
helps.
though. So
I have
She is
one.
cute.
I have one. I got to give him a shameless plug, but this little kid Mike and I met a few years ago down in North Carolina, Nate Cawthorn. Oh
oh
boy,
yeah,
he's turned out to be quite the protege, I guess. But you talk about somebody that knows his stuff and
absolutely.
is concerned about every bird on Champion Row and whose it is and how's it doing. And he's clerked for me several times. He's a very good clerk, and I always get a big laugh out of him. That's for sure. But he's
Yeah, I
doing
had a
real
great
well with
time with
his
him at
birds.
Congress. That was
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
not shy.
no, he's
Not a
not
shy
bashful.
boy.
no,
He
No,
he's
gets
a good
no,
one.
good kid. A lot of fun. A lot of
gets
fun.
right in there and gets to it, and he can raise the
Yep.
birds, and he'll tell you if he likes it or not. He's not bashful.
Yep. Nope.
And
Nope.
he'll be he'll be the next one we're adding to the judges list someday. I think that's
Oh yeah, I'm
the
sure.
important
Yeah.
part that
Yep.
for so many years there were people I knew that didn't like kids and didn't want to sell birds to kids. There are still a few of those around, but um, when I judge a show with those types of people or I'm judging their birds now, I remember that. Yeah, I'm like an elephant. I might forgive, but I do never forget. So, uh,
No, you should always. Yeah, that's true. You can forgive, but you should always remember those things.
yeah.
Always remember who helped you,
Oh
who
yeah.
was there when no one else was. So that's a big deal. It is good in everything, but I mean it's very important in what we do with the poultry too. You never know when something's going to happen and you'll lose it and you need it back.
Well,
You
I
know.
guess the sum up some of it is that from when we started, I guess, which is way back when till now, we've actually seen this become a thing, and there's more youth and participation in it because there was no show for the youth back then. So I've seen that build up through the '90s and into where we've got to through today, where some of these junior shows, like the Columbus Junior Show, is bigger than a lot of open
Mhm.
shows, and very good birds. You got some tough classes, and a lot of kids in there doing that work that we talked about, not just buying birds. There's a lot of great breeders in that. I've seen them come up now for 8 or 9 years. They've showed every year. The girl with the White Rocks from Wisconsin, the Shaw
Mhm.
family, have done a great job with those. There's a lot of old English kids in there, modern kids.
Yes.
White Rock breeders have done a good job with their youth program. Rhode Island Reds, and then even big
Silkies.
waterfowl, silkies, big waterfowl. Ducks and geese. Danny always has a hell of a class of junior waterfowl back there, and most of those kids are raising those. They're not just buying them; they're doing that. So we've seen it progress to that where you do have some really stars that shine out in the junior shows, and they kind of always come to the top every year. So I think that part of it's looking good, and there always seems to be a new crop every year. I'm always amazed at setup down at Columbus. All the new parents that are down there with the kids, and they're helping to set up and work with the junior show there. So that's a whole operation in itself down there, how we get it all done in one day on the judging the bird side. And then they got showmanship going all day Saturday, and Saturday at 4 o'clock the awards are given away, buddy. We're done, we're ready to move. So to move that many people and that many birds and keep it all organized, I always give them credit, because Mike and Janet Miller did it for years, and since they've gotten, Mike died and Janet kind of retired, Betty and the crew down there, do a wonderful job of getting it all done. Because that's not easy to try to get that done in one day. At least with the open show, we have a breath and come back on Sunday to kind of do the end of it. But that's all done in one day.
Yeah, I think if you want to
Yep.
see a well-run junior show, you got to go to Columbus.
Yep, that's the
Yep.
biggest one, and it has to be run that way. I mean,
Hmm.
there's no margin for error in that timeline. So I always give all of them. Mary Neveska and her husband Tim are now in there too. So there's a whole bunch of them. Bill Long, Newt Long, and Jonathan. They all get in there and do what they can for the junior show and get it up and running, and so they can give those awards away at 4 o'clock.
Yep.
And I'm always amazed at the amount of people that are there for those awards. You can't get through there. I mean, it's a big deal, and they thank Myers Hatchery for all they've done to help with that junior show.
Yeah. Meyer and Pen Pals as well. I mean,
Yeah,
not just
ADMs.
to shamelessly plug your ADM
We're
feed, but they
plugging
do quite a bit.
all the big sponsors down there. Myers and ADM are two big ones that always put their money up every year, and I know we give 2 scholarships away last year with some of that money down there.
Hmm.
So with that, Mike, I think we need to give Caitlin a shameless plug for her new product that she sent us to try out here, and you've been using it. So
Yep. Here's my shameless plug. Let me look here. It's called Breeder's Magic. She has it in, I think it's in 4 ounce or it's 8 ounce and pounders. They got pounders in. It's a powder. I've used it. It works well. It dissolves totally. Uh, for breeders, increases fertility, semen quality, and adult birds, chick growth. Good for their immune systems. I mean, Emily looked at the contents of it, and it's basically just about will cover anything that doesn't happen to be in your complete feed, and probably more so. I am.
Yeah, I think even the vitamins there. I mean, I'm sure that they're not going to sell you low quality vitamins or ones that are going to go bad. So yeah,
it
that's
goes in the water too. That was the other thing.
Yeah,
It
it
it,
goes
it
into
doesn't.
water, and you don't use much. I mean, it's 1/2 to 3/4 of a teaspoon per gallon. Uh, that's that's not much. And but I did use it. I used it this winter when it was cold. That first hatch was tremendous for being as cold as it was. There were a lot weren't laying, but a lot hatched that were. So I mean, but that's a plug. I don't have the current prices of it, but again, you can get a hold of Caitlin
Uh,
or
right there at
Tim.
the bottom, there's
Yeah, Rozier Poultry Supplies. Tell them we sent you,
yep.
and they will be at the Tri-State Show in
That'll be
May.
up. That's
So if
what.
you're going to be there, they can come and bring you things too.
Yeah, those that know, here in Western Ohio, we've had two shows cancel. Moon City, which was the APA semi-annual, and Dayton Fancy Feather both had to cancel because we're right in the hotbed of the AI zone. So they're not going on. So that'll be actually our next show in May. Mike and I are judging, but Kim Munden and crew up there do an excellent job. I highly
Yep.
recommend coming up for. It's out in the middle of nowhere up in Cortland, Ohio, but
It's pretty though. It's
a
pretty
pretty area.
nowhere.
It's a good time and a very. I don't think you'll find a better run show. Lord, they do a great job. So we're looking for a big turnout this year because of the
Yep.
other two shows this way being down.
So that's the ABA district meet, and this fall, second weekend of November, as always, the Ohio National, and it will be the ABA 115th anniversary. Correct,
Yep.
Matthew?
Yep. 115th. This is be a big show. So it's always a big show, but we're hoping that the ABA National being there will perk it up a little bit. And I know we're always very busy at the table selling things and the couple of new items we have. So I think you'll see them on the website, but we have these, Mike and I love them. They're these vests because I hate to wear a heavy coat, and these vests are nice. You can wear them over top your t-shirt or your sweatshirt even to stay a little warmer and
Yep.
still have some mobility. And we have 3 colors up there at bantamclub.com now. And then the other big event is where Mike and I've been working on it with the rest of the committee, which is Paul Montes, our chairman, our standard committee chairman for the ABA, and Gary Rossman and Jacob Bates, or not Jacob
No,
Bates,
John Beamer.
John Beamer. Jacob's on the judging committee. They've been working on the new standard, and Kim Munden is our publisher or person that gets it all together. So she's working on getting in a format to where we can review it, and hopefully we hope to have that out in the next couple of months. So it'll be the 60th anniversary of the Bantam standard. The original was put out in 1965, and so now we're in 2025. So it's kind of a big event. We're adding a lot of new pictures. We're adding in some of the old ABA sponsored artwork back into it, and plus something I worked several weeks on, but we're adding back in all of the inactive breed and color standards. So it'll all be in one place. So you'll be able to see some of the things that some of them never existed here. One I kind of got interested in myself that's come back from the inactive list is the watermall bantams, and they're fairly hot right now. So we have a couple pair of those we're kind of playing with, and I've talked to some of the breeders, and kind of an interesting little bird. So that was one that 10 years ago was inactive. It wasn't even published in the standard. Now it's back active and getting quite a big following. They have their own club and things. So we're looking forward to getting that out to you. And like I said, bantamclub.com. We have all the other shirts, hats, books. I know Ralph Sturgeon's, I brought this back when Walt Leonard was still alive. He was the original publisher, but Ralph Sturgeon's Start Where You Are with What You Have book is one of the hot sellers. We go through a ton of those. So that's always a good book for beginners and old timers alike, because Ralph was always the consummate start with what you got and keep raising them until you get them there. So I don't know, some of these projects, I don't know if I can live that long, but I've tried.
We gotta live as long as Ralph, baby. Gotta be 100.
Yeah, Ralph went to 100. That's
I'm
right.
not doing the Olympics when I'm 100, but
Yeah,
I'm going to be there.
Senior Olympics when he was in his 90s,
Yes,
or
he did.
marathon.
He won. He won the gold medal in the 100-yard dash or something in the Senior Olympics at 90 something. Good Lord Almighty.
Yep. So yeah, we were talking about the ABA. We planned out the nationals to like 2033. Our goal is just to live long enough to go to them. So those are all set. So other than that, I think that's about all I've got.
About it. Good day. Nice talking to you, Em.
Yeah, you guys too.
Thanks for
I'm glad you got to see me.
coming on. And like I say, RosiersPoultrySupply.com. Get over there and get some supplies. And like I say, they're at all the major shows, and they don't just bring a little bit of stuff. I've helped him and watched him and Caitlin, and they have a big old trailer full of things. So whatever you need, they'll have it. If they don't have it, they will find it for you.
Yep. Best there is, folks.
Yep. Good people.
All right, guys. Been good. Have a good week, and hopefully we'll see you sometime in the next week to 10 days.
Sounds good. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.